Welcome to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast, where we talk to IT marketing leaders about how to drive more sales. Hosted by Carlos Corredor, founder of Condor, an Inc. 5000 company and one of the fastest growing IT marketing agencies in the US.
3, 2, 1, 0.
This episode is brought to you by Condor, a digital marketing agency for mid-market B2B and IT services companies. Most B2B marketing teams struggle to drive sales, overwhelmed by long sales cycles and an elusive audience. Condor helps you measure and generate a qualified pipeline, make the most with your budget, and finally get executive recognition. You can learn more at condoragency.com. Hi, and today we have with us Inga Finneke. Inga is the marketing director at Codal, which is a design and development firm based in Chicago with over 250 people. And Inga has more than 10 years of experience in what is truly a T-shaped marketing leader, in the sense that she has worked in different functions like event management, branding, product marketing, partnerships, PR, strategic planning, content development, and a couple other ones. So we'll be talking about that today. So welcome, Inga. Glad to have you. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, you kind of gave a pretty good introduction of Codal. As you mentioned, we're a design and development consultancy, headquartered in Chicago. We work with various different types of enterprise organizations across, multiple industries. We focus on really innovating for our customers and driving kind of data-driven solutions. We do a lot of work in the e-commerce space, and I'll kind of touch on that later on, but a lot of website development, UI, UX design. We also do a lot of custom solutions, which is kind of the other side of our business, app development, digital transformation. We have a very global team across the US, UK, Canada, and India. So that's just a quick little intro on Codal, but I've been at the company for about 2 years now. Prior to Codal, I was at DocuSign, kind of doing traditional product marketing. And before that, I was at another consulting firm, quickly realized that I definitely enjoyed more of that kind of fast-paced type of environment, working on multiple projects simultaneously, shifting, prioritizing, deprioritizing. I love that. I realized that pretty early on in my career. I have, over 10 years of marketing experience, ranging in various different aspects of marketing, as you mentioned. But like I said, I really realized that I love that kind of controlled chaos, is what I like to call it, environment. And then that's when I realized that agency consulting environment and life was, really for me. I lead a very small but mighty team of brilliant marketers in the US, UK, and India. And we all kind of jointly focus on 3 things: brand awareness, lead gen, demand gen, and partner marketing. So we work very closely together with the rest of our revenue function, sales team, partnerships team, and really driving revenue towards our pipeline goal. So
Yeah, I wanna get into the fact. Well, yeah, why don't we start there, right? Like, there's no better place for controlled or sometimes even uncontrolled chaos than a marketing agency. Why do you like it so much?
Yeah, I like it because every day I wake up and I'm like, what is today going to hold for me? And I like that. I like when things are unexpected. I think that's really important to challenge yourself in that way, because when things are so controlled and you're kind of like in this very corporate environment, and I've definitely been a part of that environment where there are such strict rules to everything, you're kind of limiting yourself from a creative perspective, and you're not able to get out of your comfort zone. And every day starts to feel kind of like a routine. Whereas when you're kind of in this agency type of environment, when everything is so fast paced, you're working with like-minded, intelligent people on a daily basis that all have very similar goals, but you're also able to voice your opinion, and you're also able to think outside of the box and be creative and come up with creative ideas. And you don't have to go through multiple steps to get to the end point. At Codal, we are such a tight-knit kind of team, where we are constantly sharing ideas. I'm in the room with the CEO, COO on a daily basis. My ideas never get shut down. My colleagues' ideas never get shut down. My team's ideas never get shut down. And I think that's the kind of key differentiator, and I love that. So
Yeah, it's usually, let's say, the opposite of the normal path. A lot of people start in the agency when they're young and have
yeah.
the hunger and the
Mm-hmm.
drive. And then, as they grow older, maybe they have kids, they want a little bit
Yep.
more of a balance and, time off. So then they move to the client side where everything moves slower.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, everything's more bureaucratic, but I do appreciate the other side of it. I think it not only because of the life stage that you're in, but I think it just resembles more the real world. There is more entrepreneurial in that aspect, where you can make a difference and you can propose
Mm-hmm.
initiatives, change, and it's definitely easier to make a real difference. I say in the growth or in the trajectory of the company, obviously depending on the size on
Yeah.
both, right? But I definitely see that it's a challenge also for us as an agency where I would love that my team would have the corporate experience before the agency side, because then they would appreciate the things that you mentioned. But when that's all that they see, I think that sometimes they take it for granted, and then
Mm-hmm.
they start saying, oh, maybe you always, grass is always greener in that sense, right? So when you haven't been in the other side, it makes it more challenging. In terms of marketing, you mentioned lead generation, awareness, and partnerships. For
Mm-hmm.
Codal, which one has been more important for driving growth?
Yeah. So I will say that the most important thing, and this I would say probably doesn't even go just for Codal, but I think that lead generation really happens when all things combined happen together. So in order for that to happen, I think that the collaboration between, and I kind of started talking about this in the beginning, and I promised I'd go back to it. So here we are. The importance of combining ideas between all of your revenue teams. So as far as how our team is structured, and I'm sure it's similar for other companies, is, we have a marketing team who's responsible, of course, for brand awareness, marketing campaigns, events. And then we have a sales team and kind of customer success, account executives, and business development. Of course, they're responsible for, new leads and cold outreach, emails, things like that, to really driving growth that way and building the pipeline that way. And then we have our partnerships team where we have very close partnerships with e-commerce platforms and then other, cloud providers and other partners as well, tech providers. So I think that when you're working in a silo, and you're just focusing on brand awareness, or when you're just focusing on, the business development side of things, or when you're just solely relying on your partnerships ecosystem, the lead generation is just not going to happen. I've seen it honestly throughout my whole entire career where, you have kind of like these siloed functions, and the CEO and the COO and the CFO are knocking on your door and they're like, what's going on? Where are the leads? And it's, that is also like just so surprising to me. But that's why one of the biggest things that I've really made sure that I prioritized when I joined Codal about 2 years ago was ensuring that we had this kind of collaboration and synergy between all of these different teams. So I feel like we're now at a really good place. Of course, there's always room for improvement, where The marketing team is relying on the sales team is relying on marketing, and then we're all kind of then relying on the partnerships ecosystem and the partnerships team. I always like to use this kind of analogy to really bring this forth to the table, just like a very well-oiled machine. I'm not even saying like a car. I feel like that's always just like the go-to analogy, but just think of just like any type of machine. If you're missing a specific part, then it's not going to run, right? So if you're missing marketing and you're just solely relying on the sales team or the partnerships team, it's not going to function. If you're just solely relying on marketing, right, which tends to happen a lot. Say you're running an event and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, that's a marketing thing. Okay, bye. Good luck, run the event. That's also not going to drive the best results. So in order to see good results, in order to have this kind of well-oiled machine, I always like to envision the sales team, the partnerships team, and the marketing team working so close together that it becomes this machine that's like working. And whether you're running an event or whether you're just running a campaign, you're fully relying on all functions, all team members to drive towards that similar goal. As soon as something falls off, that machine breaks. So I think that's kind of my biggest thing. So
As you were talking, I was trying to find a machine that is not a car.
yeah.
Way through it, I'm like, okay, I think because as you mentioned, you default to car, but then it's like, no,
I know.
she said it cannot be a car. So it's like, okay, a plane. I don't know much about planes. So, I started doing the analogy with boats because I like boats. But
Yeah.
I see
Anything.
um what advice do you have? Like you said, it took the good part of 2 years, right? To make that happen, especially in a company of a size of yours, of Codal right now, which is, over 250 people. What's some advice that you have in terms of what worked, or either in here or in your previous experience of things that have worked, things that haven't, and how to go about that for a leader of really revenue growth, because if you're marketing, you're in marketing. Obviously, you have to look for better collaboration with sales, for example, or partnerships. A lot of times in marketing or not, but yeah, for the leader of growth of a company, which involves sales and marketing, and sometimes partnerships, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to say something and I hope I don't get canceled. And we were kind of talking about this before we started recording. I truly believe getting into an office together and collaborating in a space doesn't have to be always, it doesn't have to be every single day, but say you have a very big campaign that you're running or a very large project or very high targeted list of accounts that you want to go after. Getting in a room together and collaborating, that's truly when I see the magic happen. It is so hard to do these type of ideation sessions and collaborate and work together virtually. Like I said, I hope I don't get canceled, but I think, and like I said, this is not every single day, but for major things that you're working on as a group, that collaboration is so important, and you won't be able to accomplish that virtually. Just reading people's body language, understanding people in person, I think is super important. So that's number one. Number two is, I think also, coming prepared to do research and really understanding what exactly you are, targeting, and what exactly the mutual goals are. I think a lot of the times the silos kind of happen is when, sales, they have their own metrics, they have their own KPIs, they have their own objectives that they need to meet for the month, for the quarter, for the year. And then marketing has their own kind of MQL goals or whatever that they need to meet. And then partnerships, they have their own goals. But if you don't come together and really like hash it out and really talk about the mutual goals that you have, hopefully the company that you're at, you're all kind of striving towards the same goal. But if you aren't able to fully kind of understand, you know, what the sales team's goals are, what the marketing team goals are, what the partnerships goals are, and then fully align on how you can rely on one another to reach those goals, then that's kind of when the silos happen. And that's kind of when even this kind of like weird competition starts to happen too, you know, between these different teams. Is when you don't come to the realization that like, okay, we're all in this together. We all have very similar goals. We're all striving towards the same thing. We all have a very clear path. So that I think that realization is super important. And being in person helps. So
And in terms of those KPIs, and I have my thoughts, and I hope I don't get canceled either, because similar to yours. But
we'll just both get canceled. It's
yeah.
fine.
But in terms of the second advice is on goal alignment, do you have any common metrics? Because I agree that, you know, if you have MQLs on one side and let's say qualified pipeline or closed deals on the other, you know, how would that tie together, right? But like, do you have either common metrics, or how exactly do you align on KPIs?
Yeah, for sure. So we have an MQL goal that the marketing team needs to kind of meet on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, and then a yearly basis. And then the sales team also has an SQL goal that they have to meet, same thing, monthly, quarterly, yearly. And then we have a conversion rate that we're trying to reach. So the MQL to SQL conversion rate that we are striving towards is the same number, right? So in order for the sales team to achieve their sales goal, marketing needs to achieve their marketing goal. So we have the same kind of conversion rate goal. And then same thing for partnerships. We're relying on the partnerships ecosystem to drive those MQLs. For example, if we have a marketing-led event and we have a partner that, you know, sponsors the event or, you know, does the event with us, hosts the event with us, and they drive, you know, their clients, that's a partner qualified goal that is led by marketing. So it's all kind of together. Marketing relies on sales, sales relies on marketing, and we all kind of rely on partnerships to drive towards that same conversion rate goal that we've set for ourselves.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I mean, it sounds very logic and it sounds simple. It's not in practice, but I'm amazed on, even though how basic it sounds, so many companies, not just startups, but, you know, mid-market companies, are having the marketing team just doing conversions, visits and conversions, and those are their metrics. And then the sales team, and they obviously, you know, the sales team is complaining that the leads are garbage, and marketing complains that the sales team doesn't do enough of an effort or following up on their leads. But it's like, why don't you just do, you know, why don't you follow the leads and start seeing the patterns in terms of what leads are actually becoming SQLs and closed clients? But obviously for that, you need to be present in the CRM. You need to tie the CRM to other marketing platforms. So it's easier said than done. And that's, you know, when bureaucracy starts and when, you know, things get delayed and then they never get done.
Yeah. I mean, mind you, we're not perfect. And to your point, it definitely sounds way more basic than it actually is. It's a lot of effort. I think we're lucky at Codal, like I said, because we are a fairly small team. We're involved in all of the meetings. Like marketing knows exactly what deals, what opportunities we have in the pipeline. Sales knows exactly what events we have coming up. They know exactly what marketing campaigns we're running. So we are involved in everything together. And then same thing with partnerships. And that is because we have this kind of small environment, and we're in the office by the way, 3 days a week, but still it helps. Just kind of being in the know. So I think just having that connection, I think that's like my number one advice is like insert yourself. I think early on in my career, I was always like, I'm curious how this came up. I'm curious how we got this deal. I'm so curious how this happened. And I never really voiced my opinion or like found out how. And there are a couple of people in my career that I've met that kind of soon became my mentors where they've told me like, you need to just insert yourself. You need to speak up. The worst thing that could happen is they just, tell you like, no, or like, we're not going to answer your question, or, kind of tell you to buzz off. But what I've realized is in most cases, like people want to talk about it in your company, even if you're a part of a large organization. Like, I think just kind of inserting yourself and asking questions and being curious. And if you are like thinking to yourself something, most cases other people are also thinking the same thing. So like bring it up in a meeting and kind of voice your opinion. Like, hey, we have this amazing case study with a client. How did this project come about? What are the roots? Where did it come from? What were the pain points that the client was facing? What were the challenges? Just like asking these questions, I feel like a lot of the times, especially people that just start off, in their career, they're so nervous to ask these questions. I was. And I think those questions are super important to ask. So
I'm happy that you bring that up, and going back to the hot topic of going to the office or working from home and the policy there, it's interesting to me that the younger generation, people that are right out of college, those are the ones that are more offended, when they are requested to go to the office, right? In your case, for example, right, you have a couple of kids, right? So, and you have, you could say that let's say you've paid your dues, you have multiple years of experience in marketing, and
yeah.
perhaps now you want to spend time at home, you know what you need to do,
Mhm.
and even somebody like you is saying, hey, no, I think the office presence and in person is important and it's crucial.
Yeah.
I think the mentoring aspect is also, how are kids out of college how are they going to learn, from their mentors? It's usually leading by example, right? But you're not seeing the other person. You're only, sharing, maybe a couple meetings a day in total, and then with your mentor maybe once or twice a week, right? That's completely different. It's like trying to form a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, just doing
Yeah.
FaceTime a couple times a week,
Yeah.
and honestly, it's been a challenge to us. And I'm gonna send definitely this episode to my team.
I will for
Because
sure get canceled. It's fine. It's worth it for me.
yeah, because again, and I think, it depends on each company and each team, and it's also the point is not to go all day to an office and just sit in your cubicle or your desk, right? It's trying to do in a day where you can have your one-on-ones or your team meetings there, and maybe you do a team lunch, once a week or every so often, right? And then, even sharing time in the hallway, having lunch together, talking about anything, it helps to strengthen those relationships, and really, especially the younger team, accelerate their maturity. So I agree. It's not a, it's an unpopular opinion. It's a hot take for sure, but I think a lot of people
Yeah, it
will
is.
agree with us.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it. That's exactly it. And I mean, going back to your earlier point, I have two kids, right? So of course, that balance is very much appreciated. The 2 days that, I work remotely, I'm able to drop my kid off at daycare. I'm able to pick them up without rushing, I'm able to do a morning workout class, things that, I can't fully do when I'm in the office, right? So I appreciate that. But I think it's exactly true what you said. It's that human connection that's missing, right? And I don't care what anyone says, like, oh, I work so much better at home. I'm way more productive at home. And that might be true for sure, but how about that human element and that human connection? You can't replace that at all via a Zoom, right? So if you're having a coffee with someone, if you're simply just catching up with your mentor, or you're catching up with an old colleague, or you're collaborating in a room and you're getting a whiteboard out and you're doing post-it notes and you're getting into heated conversations with your colleagues, and you're sharing all of these creative ideas, and you're in the room together and it's getting heated, and you grab a drink afterwards. Like, you can't replace that. And I think in the environment that we are in, I think that people have become a little bit more relaxed. I think COVID has a lot to do with that. And I think that the younger kind of generation, they have now they've kind of gotten a taste of that. And they're like, oh, this is great. Like, of course, it's easier to stay at home. And of course, it's easier to do whatever you need to do during the day, but that human element is so important. And I feel like no matter how high up you are, like I have, friends that are at a super senior level, and they work remotely. They even tell me, like, for very important meetings or for very important projects or kickoffs or campaigns, they would rather do that in person. Because that collaboration and that ideation, like, is just, you can't compare it to anything else. So, um, very important in my opinion.
And in terms going back to the lead generation, you mentioned one cannot exist without the other in terms of the awareness, the lead generation, and the partnerships. And now let's say if you like beyond that fact, right? But going into okay, how to do each of those three successfully beyond the collaboration with the other two aspects, right? Any advice on what has worked for you in each of those three, in awareness, in lead gen, and in partnerships?
Yeah. So, one kind of clear example, we just did a brand refresh for our company. So a lot of the marketing efforts that went into that was just all about kind of brand awareness, right? So I think that the number one advice that I would give to anyone about brand awareness is doing the research up front and understanding the competitive landscape, understanding what your competitors are doing, looking at the data. How is the data performing, like in your CRMs, for example. So one clear example with this brand refresh, we use HubSpot as a CRM. Just looking at past engagements and past emails and things like that, we kind of soon realized that perhaps the vehicle for the brand awareness associated with a brand refresh wasn't solely relied on emails. We wanted to also incorporate newsletter because we were seeing a lot of great engagement with our newsletter. So, like, looking at that data, that really helped us. And then also, the social aspect of it. We looked at past social platforms. We realized that LinkedIn was our best social platform, as opposed, to Twitter or Facebook. So we really doubled down on LinkedIn, and we did, kind of like LinkedIn ads around it and things like that. So definitely looking at the data to see, if you're trying to drive brand awareness, the best kind of vehicle for you. Because what tends to happen a lot is, say you're trying to bring awareness to your company or drive, increase brand awareness. and you're solely just kind of relying on social media because that's what everyone says to do. Just do social media activities and paid ads, and that's it. But what works for one company might not work for you. So really looking at the data is super important for us. And that's kind of, when you realize like, okay, maybe we incorporate a little bit of email based on these metrics and based on past results. Maybe we do a newsletter. Maybe we do social media, and incorporate all of these things and not just solely relying on something. So that's kind of the awareness side of things. Lead generation, I mean, I would say same thing, like do research. Every single company is different. What might work for one company might not work for you. Anytime we do a marketing campaign, we do a lot of research up front, and we do a lot of competitive research, and we do a lot of just data historical research, like looking at past engagement, things like that. We have been looking a lot like at our website and website traffic, where are the leads coming from? Perhaps they're not converting, and that's kind of why the campaign is set in place, but really fully analyzing, the website traffic and where they're coming from and the sources, and then creating a campaign around that, right? So, for example, we just launched a lead gen campaign. It's super hyper focused. We did a lot of research up front of who we want to be targeting that, meets our ICP. We did a lot of work around that as well, which, by the way, is a huge misstep. I feel like a lot of the times in a marketing campaign is like, okay, step one, you need to really understand who you're even targeting. And I feel like that's a miss sometimes. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we did that first, building out our ICP, who we're going to be targeting, what does that persona look like, and then coming up with a very targeted, list of accounts. We wanted to try more of like an ABX approach, or like an, account-based marketing approach. We like to call it ABX because it's not just marketing, it's an account-based experience. So we did that research kind of upfront. We did the ICP work. We put together a list of targeted accounts that we want to go after that meets our ICP, and we put a whole campaign together based on the research that we've done. So that works, for lead gen specifically. And then incorporating partnerships is, always interesting because we rely, on our partners, especially our partnerships ecosystem, in doing a lot of like joint work, right? And doing like a lot of co-marketing together. So our major partners, we can do like an event together, or we can do a co-branded piece of content together. And that drives mutual lead generation. So it's a little bit different, but relying on our partners has been super beneficial for us, and just kind of like having that beneficial or that mutual relationship is super key. So yeah, I guess like the biggest example would be on the partnership side of things is just, doing a joint campaign or running like a hosted event together where we map out exactly who we should be targeting that is mutually beneficial, mapping out, our targeted accounts together, and then going after those accounts. And then I think that's where you see the success.
I'm very curious about the partnership aspect. Do you have somebody in charge of or dedicated to partners? Do you do that yourself? What type of partners do you focus on building relationships with? You mentioned technologies, you mentioned perhaps what could be considered competitors, but they're not because they offer different services, but they go after the same type of clients, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the partnership strategy or whatever it is that you can share?
Yeah, for sure. So as far as how our partnerships team is kind of structured right now, we have a partnerships kind of leader. So he's responsible for really building out the partnerships and kind of seeing what partners make sense to join our ecosystem, and then vice versa. What ecosystem doesn't make sense for us to join. So it needs to be mutually beneficial. As far as how we choose the partners that we want to partner with, the number one thing is we need to have, a mutual ICP, right? So we have a very targeted project size that we want to go after. We have specific clients that we go after or prospects that we go after. We tend to go after, the mid-size to enterprise organizations. So we make sure that our partners are going after the same type of organizations, because if they're not, then that's just not beneficial for either of us, right? Because then the partner is going to be referring us for, for deals that just don't even meet our ICP, and same thing. So that's that. And then we also have a partner marketing person. So we have really doubled down on our partnerships channel, and we've hired someone, or rather we kind of switch things around to have this person solely focused on our partnerships. So our partner marketing kind of efforts are solely managed by her. And I think if you're just kind of building out your partnerships function in your company, I think that having that dedicated marketing support is very, very crucial. I'm like super passionate about this because I've been doing partner marketing for quite some time. And I just see the benefits of having that kind of dedicated support, because partner marketing, in my opinion, is very different than just, regular kind of corporate marketing. You have this kind of element of sales incorporated into the marketing. So not only are you just, executing on the co-marketing campaigns with your partner, or you're doing an event together, or you're putting in, you're creating an ebook together, for example, or you're running a social campaign together. That's not the only thing that is happening from a marketing perspective. You're also building relationships, and you're also selling, the service, and you're selling, for example, Codal's services to the partner. Obviously, the partner has many different agencies that they can choose from. What makes us stand out? So it's kind of like a sense of like, or an element of marketing to the partner, Codal, So it's kind of like you're not only marketing Codal to the partner, you're also marketing to your prospects together. So it's like two different types of marketing in one, right? So it's like sales and business development and partnership development, and also, of course, marketing. So it's unique.
Well, thank you for the wisdom pills across marketing functions. Anything else? Any other wisdom pills that we haven't gotten to, or any advice in general, or anything you'd like to share that, that I haven't asked you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my career is to do things with a purpose. I think that it happens way too often, and I've definitely done this in my past career, especially when I just started out, but just kind of, running a marketing campaign or hosting an event or running a webinar just for the sake of doing it with no true meaning or purpose behind it. I like to call them floating campaigns, right? So there's nothing attached to the campaign. There's no strategy. There's no true research done up front. You're not backing it up by any data, historical data, or any type of impactful content. Like I said, I think this happens way too often. Marketing wants to support in driving revenue for the company, get super excited, we get carried away, and we start running all these random floating campaigns. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what was even the purpose? Why did I even start doing this to begin with? So that's why I like to have my team put a full brief together, really outlining all of the research, all of the data, all of the metrics, your goals, your KPIs for the campaign. What are you trying to achieve Who are you going to pull in? Is it, is it going to just run for a month? Is it going to run for a quarter? Fully outlining everything in a brief, getting that approved, and then you can move forward with, next steps for the campaign. Because like I said, when you have these kind of floating campaigns that aren't, that don't have like a full purpose, then you're not going to see, in most cases, you're not going to see the results that you're hoping for. So definitely think that's the biggest thing. And then I think my biggest takeaway is just the collaboration and the importance of that well-oiled machine analogy, right? Things won't work unless you have marketing working very hand in hand with sales, and sales working hand in hand with marketing, and then working with partnerships, just kind of having that trifecta. For us, of course, every company has different teams, but that's kind of how it is, structured for us. But having those revenue functions and those revenue teams working in synergy together, that's the only way that lead gen, demand gen will kind of happen.
And in terms of, I always like to ask this before we end, it's any particular entity that helped you learn and grow, and that can be a book, a publisher, a mentor, a person, any recommendation that you have for people to follow and grow in their marketing career?
Yeah. I am a huge advocate, and I think that it is so important, especially when you're so early on in your career, is to find a mentor. And this doesn't have to be like like official mentor where it's like, you're my mentor, I'm your mentee. This can just kind of come naturally, right? And I think that your mentors change and evolve as the different phases in your life change, right? So like at a certain point, it was a super, motivational professor, right? That was kind of my mentor that I really learned from a lot, and I kept going for career advice, for resume building advice, things like that. And then that could change and evolve as things shape up in your career to a close friend, right, who's kind of like in the same industry, or another person that you just kind of meet at like a networking event. It changes, right, and it evolves. I definitely always like to find a mentor, and I always encourage anyone to find a mentor as well, or it could be 2, or it could be 3. Like I said, it doesn't have to be formal, but someone that you can just grab a coffee with, and someone that you really look up to and that you kind of aspire to be, and someone that gets you out of your comfort zone. I think the number one, like I said, my mentors have changed throughout my life, but the number one thing that I kind of gravitate towards is somebody that challenges me, somebody that like is a straight shooter, someone that will tell me things how they are, someone that will get me out of my comfort zone. For example, if I'm like speaking to this person, or my mentor, and I'm asking them for advice, I definitely don't want them to just kind of like sweeten things up for me. I want them to tell me like, no, Inga, you're crazy. Do this, voice your opinion, get it right, get it done, And I think especially being a woman, especially being in tech, we need that. So no sugarcoating anything. I think that's my biggest and best piece of advice is find yourself a mentor that you can grab a coffee with. Doesn't have to be weekly, doesn't have to be monthly, maybe even quarterly. In person, grab that coffee and like chat and just like ask for advice and let them challenge you. I think that is so important. There's definitely like great books that I've read, but like it's that meaningful human interaction that has been the most impactful for me, at least.
All right. I agree, and I never thought about how it was okay that your mentors and the type of mentors change over time, At one point in my life, I don't know, Tony Robbins, I didn't know who he was, and at what point, like, he helped me to change a couple of things in my mindset that I needed to change. Now it's a little repetitive, when I hear him talk. And the same thing at the beginning, different stages, both in your professional life and also in your personal life. But I never thought about it that like that, right? That there are mentors for different phases, and that's okay, and it should be the case, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, Inga, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you, and again, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. It was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe for future episodes. Until next time.